I had that kind of experience in my life. Right as I was turning 30, life ripped me out of the way of life I was used to and started changing everything sharply. It simply kicked me in the backside and threw me out of the place I was used to. And the whole circle of people from my old life seemed to stay off to the side of my new life. You know, it's like stepping out of a noisy crowd. You stand there and look at it from the outside. I'm not saying this with any anger toward those people. It's just the closest example of how it felt. I have to say, that is pretty hard on you mentally, because it happens so suddenly, because all those made-up future plans fall apart. It gets so heavy that even thinking hurts. I mean, it physically hurts. I don't know if you understand what I mean or not. If you give your mind even a little room, right from the first thought, it starts telling you that you are treated unfairly. Then resentment comes up, anger, the desire to get back at someone, the fear of emptiness, and that only makes it worse. Alex, careful. That guy's about to change lanes. He didn't even use his blinker. Sorry. Traffic is traffic. I just can't sit quietly in the back seat. So, anyway, I was lucky back then, because by that time I had already spent several years eagerly searching for myself through spirituality, searching for God, and I think by then I had already found him. Long story short, life boxed me in so hard that I went inward. Some people would call it meditation. Some people would call it prayer. I simply stopped letting my thoughts spin because they only made it hurt more, and I acted only from that inner quiet as best I could. There's some good even in bad things. The divine was just pouring into me. And if you'll allow me, I'll get sidetracked for just 1 second. It was from that inner quiet that my big business was later born. From scratch, a chemical plant, can you imagine? Later, it became the foundation of my wealth. But we'll talk about that separately some other time. I'll actually come back often to money, work, and business, because in my life, there have always been 3 main words: God, family, business, in that order. It was always important for me to understand how God's guidance shows itself, not somewhere up in the clouds, but right here, in real earthly life. And now, coming back to loneliness. That inner quiet state allowed me to calmly look from the outside at all the people who had stayed back in my old life, and to take a critical look at my own behavior. I began to realize that with some people from my past, there were still things left unsaid. And we're talking about relationships from roughly the period of my life between 20 and 30. Most often, these were old arguments, old fallouts, things that seemed to die down later, but still remained like little pockets of tension in my memory and in those relationships. Not that we completely stopped talking after the conflicts. No, we kept communicating through that whole period, right up until I left. But in every case like that, some kind of openness disappeared. As if the person is still there next to you, the conversation is still there, but that old, clean feeling between you is no longer there. I'm very grateful to God that back then He gave me the sense to drive over to each person and have an honest talk. The conversation was always the same. I apologized for what I had done in the past. I admitted that I had been wrong. And in any conflict, as a rule, both sides are wrong in some way. I could only admit my own fault. And I asked them to accept my apology. And every time, I could feel some kind of heaviness fall away, from them and from me. And I have to say, no one gloated. No one mocked me for being open like that. No one tried to humiliate me. It only made things better. And later, life showed me that many of those people played an important role in the years that followed. But there was another strange moment too. Several people passed away not long after my apologies. Almost right away. And to this day, that remains a mystery to me. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe there was some reason, some connection between those things. I'm not going to claim that I know. But for me, it remained a very serious sign and a mystery, even now, in the 8th decade of my life. That is the kind of experience my loneliness gave me. It did not just leave me alone. It helped me see where some heaviness was still left in my relationships, where I myself could come forward first, where I did not have to wait, did not have to prove anything, did not have to hold on to that old feeling that I was right, but could simply say honestly to another person, "I'm sorry. I was wrong back then." And by the way, later on, already in my new life, a completely different circle of people formed around me. People who were much more in line with my new goals, my new inner state, and the life I was stepping into. This experience opened up a lot for me. First, since then, I have never been lonely again, because now I am always with God inside me. Second, I believe life deliberately pushed me into that state, so that I simply had nowhere to look outside myself, only inward. Otherwise, I would not have found support inside myself, and I would have spent my whole life clinging to what was outside. Third, it allowed me to clean up my relationships with the people around me, and, by the way, to try not to make those mistakes again later, instead of feeding myself with the thirst for revenge, resentment, and proud loneliness. And let me be clear, I use the word try for a reason. It does not always work. And by the way, later, looking back at that whole situation from the future, I realized that all those changes were actually moving in the direction of the dream I had spoken to God about a little earlier. All of it took a year of changes. But who knew back then that life would lead me through such huge changes? At least, that is how they seemed to me then. And by the way, if my psyche had not held up, or if I had not been honest with myself, no dream would have come true. I would have fallen again into some kind of life circle, and probably not a very pleasant one for me. You only see all of this clearly from a great distance in time. But about that, as I said, I'll tell you some other time. So, my dear, if you are feeling lonely right now, don't rush right away to ask, how do I urgently stop being alone? Ask yourself something more honest first. Why was this given to me? And what for? Maybe in this loneliness, something big is supposed to be born in your life. Or maybe you need to clean up your past a little. And if God gives you the chance to see that, it is better not to argue with Him. So, that's today's little grumbling from Baba Shura. I'm with you, my dear. Hang in there. If you need another video letter like this, subscribe, my dear. I'll write to you like this sometimes, from the road, from home, from the kitchen, from the window, little by little, so you don't have to stay alone inside that heaviness. Grandma has something to say about life, about business, and about God inside all of it. Maybe it will be useful to you. And watch the next video about who I am, so nothing is left unsaid between us. The link is somewhere around here.